Hi everyone! If you've been following AI recently, you've probably noticed that everyone seems to be talking about voice cloning. Every week there's another news story about someone with motor neurone disease, MND, being able to preserve their voice before they lose the ability to speak. I think that's amazing. Honestly, I do. If someone knows they're going to lose something as personal as their voice, giving them the opportunity to keep part of themselves is incredibly powerful. It protects memories. It protects identity. It protects the sound that their family and friends have always known. But every time I watch one of these stories, I end up asking the same question. What about people who never had a voice to preserve? Nobody seems to be talking about us. I've never been able to speak naturally. I have severe dyskinetic cerebral palsy, and I've used AAC, or Augmentative and Alternative Communication, for most of my life. Today, I communicate using an EyeGaze computer. I look at letters on a screen, build sentences with my eyes, and the computer speaks them aloud. It's how I work, study, stream games on YouTube, mentor other AAC users, and simply have conversations with friends and family. Without AAC, I wouldn't be the person I am today. But having a voice and having your voice are two very different things. People often assume that because I have a speech device, that's the end of the story. They think technology solved the problem years ago. In reality, the technology has changed dramatically over the last 15 years, and so has my relationship with it. Looking back now, I realise that my journey wasn't just about learning to communicate. It was about trying to find a voice that felt like me. That's what I want to talk about today. This isn't a video saying that voice cloning shouldn't help people with MND. It absolutely should. Those stories deserve to be told. But there is another story that deserves to be told as well. The story of people who were never able to speak in the first place. Because for us, AI isn't preserving something we've lost. It's giving us something we've never had. Before I talk about AI and 11 Labs, I think it's important to tell you how we got here. Back in 2010, EyeGaze technology was still incredibly new. Today, you can buy an eye tracker that plugs into a computer for a few £100s. Back then, it was completely different. I was one of the first children in the UK to receive an EyeGaze communication device. The whole system cost around £12,000. For my family, that simply wasn't affordable. But something incredible happened. My local community came together and started fundraising. Friends, neighbours, schools, local organisations and complete strangers all wanted to help. Little by little, they raised enough money to buy the device. Looking back now, it's honestly overwhelming to think about. Thousands of pounds were raised because people believed that a little girl deserved the chance to communicate. When I finally received the device, I remember giving a short thank you speech to everyone who had helped. It was one of the first times many of them had heard me speak. That moment changed my life forever. For the first time, I wasn't relying on someone else to guess what I wanted to say. I could build my own sentences. I could tell jokes. I could ask questions. I could answer teachers. I could make friends more independently. My world suddenly became so much bigger. I remember people crowding around my new communication device. They were fascinated that a computer could follow my eyes. Looking back now, eye tracking feels almost normal. In 2010 though, it felt like something from the future. But there was one problem. The only girl's voice available on my communication device was an American voice. Not only was it American, it was incredibly robotic. I'm English. I grew up in the south of England. Yet every time I spoke, people heard what sounded like a robot from America. At the time, though, I honestly didn't care very much. After years of struggling to communicate, simply having a voice was magical. Did it sound like me? Not at all. Did it matter? Not really. Because for the first time in my life, people could hear my thoughts.
Santa Claus is called Duncan, which means Christmas old man. The children held muslin stockings on the tree, hoping that Christmas old man will fill them with gifts and treats.
When I listen back to those recordings now, they're strangely emotional. Not because the voice sounds good, it doesn't. Technology has moved on so much since then. They're emotional because they remind me where my journey began. That's the voice that helped me make friends. That's the voice that answered questions in class. That's the voice that let me say thank you. That's the voice that gave me independence. Even though it didn't sound anything like me, I'll always be grateful for it. A couple of years later, around 2012, something exciting happened. 2 new British children's voices called Rosie and Harry were released for my communication device. To most people, that probably doesn't sound like a big deal. It was just another computer voice. But for me, it felt huge. For the first time, I didn't sound like an American robot. I finally sounded British. That might seem like a small change, but it made a real difference. When people met me, the voice they heard matched where I came from. It felt much more natural, and conversations flowed better because people weren't distracted by the accent. The technology had taken another step forward, and so had I. Rosie quickly became the voice of my childhood. She was there throughout school, helping me answer questions in class, chat with friends, tell jokes, and share my ideas. When I think back to those years, that's the voice I hear in my memories. It's the voice that helped me grow in confidence and become more independent.
Hello! My name is Becky and I'm 15 years old. I have quadriplegic cerebral palsy. Part of my brain does not work properly, so I cannot talk. I use a computer, which I control with my eyes to speak.
As much as I loved Rosie, there was one funny downside. Every other girl who used AAC seemed to choose Rosie as well. If you walked into an AAC event, a special school, or a communication conference, it felt like every girl sounded exactly the same. We'd all have different personalities, different interests, and different things to say, but when we spoke, it was as if we'd all borrowed the same voice. Imagine walking into a classroom where every girl had exactly the same voice. It would feel strange, yet for us, that was completely normal. At the time, none of us really questioned it. We were just happy to have voices that sounded much more natural than the ones we'd had before. Looking back now though, it's funny to realise that an entire generation of British girls, AAC users, all sounded almost identical. As I got older, something else started to change. I was growing up, Rosie wasn't. The older I became, the more I realised my voice still sounded like a young child. I was becoming a teenager. My interests were changing. My personality was changing. And the way I wanted to express myself was changing. But every time I spoke, people still heard the voice of a little girl. There simply weren't any British teenage voices. There weren't any young adult voices either. You couldn't change the age of the voice or adjust how it sounded. You chose from the voices that existed, and that was it. It's a strange feeling when your own voice doesn't grow up with you. Most people never think about that because it happens naturally. As children grow into teenagers and adults, their voices change too. Mine didn't. My communication changed. My vocabulary changed. My confidence changed. But the voice itself stayed exactly the same. Eventually, I realised I needed something different. Not because there was anything wrong with Rosie, but because I'd outgrown her. After looking through the options, I ended up choosing an Australian voice. People often laugh when I tell them that, because I'm obviously not Australian. But there was a very practical reason behind it. Hardly anyone else was using it. For the first time in years, I sounded different from everyone around me. The voice also sounded slightly older, more like a teenager than a young child, which suited me much better at that stage of my life. Was it perfect? Not even close. It still wasn't my accent. It still wasn't my identity. It still wasn't my voice, but it was the closest I could get with the technology available at the time.
Do you like Christmas or do you hate Christmas? I don't know. I want to know. Because you might be a Scrooge.
Watching the Jingle Jam, of course.
Oh, of course, that is
I
it.
loved seeing you in the green dress last year.
Oh.
Are you planning to wear a dress again?
Looking back now, I realised something important. For years, I wasn't choosing the voice that represented me. I was choosing the least wrong option. Sometimes that meant sounding American. Sometimes it meant sounding like every other child who used AAC. Sometimes it meant sounding Australian because it was the only voice that felt vaguely the right age. I accepted those compromises because that's all we had. For most AAC users, your identity was limited by whatever voices software companies happened to make available. You didn't build your own voice. You simply picked one from a list and hoped people would eventually associate it with you. I never imagined there would be another option. Then artificial intelligence arrived. And for the first time, instead of asking, "Which voice should I choose?" I found myself asking a completely different question. What would I sound like if I'd been able to speak all along? That question changed everything. For years, I accepted that my voice would never really sound like me. Technology kept improving. The voices became clearer, less robotic, and more expressive. But at the end of the day, I was still choosing from a list of voices that someone else had created. None of them had been designed with me in mind. They were just the closest match I could find. Then everything changed. Artificial intelligence arrived. When people first started talking about AI voices, I didn't immediately think, this could change my life. Like most people, I heard stories about people with motor neurone disease, or MND. Many of them know that over time, they may lose the ability to speak. AI gave them the opportunity to record their voice while they still could, so that even after losing their speech, they could continue communicating in a voice that sounded like themselves. I think that's one of the most incredible uses of AI that we've seen. Your voice is part of your identity. It's how your children remember you. It's how your partner hears you say, "I love you." It's how your friends recognize you without even looking. If technology can preserve that for someone living with MND, That's something worth celebrating. But every time I watched one of those stories, I found myself thinking, what about people like me? There were headlines everywhere about saving your voice. But what if you've never had one? Nobody was asking that question. There was nothing for me to record. No childhood videos of me chatting away. No voice messages. No recordings of me reading stories. No phone calls. Nothing. If someone asked me to clone my voice, where would they even start? There was no voice to clone. At first, I wondered if that meant AI simply wasn't for people like me. Maybe it would always be a technology designed to preserve voices that already existed. But the more I learned about tools like 11 Labs, the more I realized something. I wasn't trying to preserve a voice. I was trying to create one. That completely changed how I looked at AI. Instead of asking, can AI copy my voice? I started asking, if I'd been able to speak all my life, what would I sound like? That's a surprisingly difficult question. I've never heard my natural voice. Nobody has. Not even me. Would I sound like my mum, who grew up in Gloucestershire with a slight West Country accent? Would I sound more like my dad, who grew up in Surrey? Would growing up in Sussex have influenced my accent? What about all the years I spent surrounded by teachers, therapists and friends? Would living in Scotland now have changed it even more? Nobody knows. And that's okay. Because I realised something important. The goal isn't to discover the voice I should have had. The goal is to create a voice that feels authentic to who I am today. A voice that matches my personality. A voice that matches my age. A voice that makes people think, yes, that's Becky. For the first time in my life, I wasn't choosing the least wrong option from a drop-down menu. I was shaping something that actually represented me. That felt incredibly emotional. People often ask me whether my 11 Labs voice is really my voice. My answer is always the same. Yes. Not because it's based on recordings of my actual voice. It isn't. But because everything else is mine. The words are mine. The humour is mine. The stories are mine. The frustration when technology doesn't work is mine. The terrible egg jokes are definitely mine. The AI simply gives those things a sound. In many ways, I think that's what a voice really is. It's not just the noise your vocal cords make. It's the way your personality reaches other people. For the first time in my life, I feel like people are hearing me, not just the computer that's speaking for me. And that's something I never thought I'd experience. When I realised that AI could do more than simply clone existing voices, I became fascinated. For the first time, I wasn't looking at technology that only helped people preserve a voice they were about to lose. I was looking at technology that might finally give me a voice that actually felt like mine. That was something I'd never experienced before. Unlike someone living with motor neurone disease, I couldn't upload recordings of my own speech because they simply don't exist. There are no videos of me chatting as a child, no voice notes on someone's phone, and no old recordings that capture what I sounded like years ago. I wasn't trying to recreate something that had been lost. I was starting with absolutely nothing. That meant I had to answer a question that most people never even think about. If I had been able to speak all my life, what would I actually sound like? There isn't a correct answer because nobody has ever heard my natural voice, not even me. At first, I found that quite difficult. Then I realised that maybe I was asking the wrong question. Instead of trying to discover a voice that nobody could ever prove, I decided to create one that genuinely represented who I am today. I wanted people to hear my personality rather than just another computer voice. That suddenly made the whole process feel much more personal. I started thinking about my life. I was born and raised in southern England. My dad grew up in Surrey, while my mum grew up in Gloucestershire and still has a slight West Country accent. I spent my childhood around Sussex and Surrey, listening to my family, teachers, therapists, and friends. All of those voices became part of the way I imagined I would sound if I had been able to speak naturally. After a lot of experimenting, I finally wrote down a description that felt right. Female, 23 years old, raised in southern England, warm, friendly and approachable. Natural conversational voice with a neutral Southern English accent. Subtle Gloucestershire and West Country warmth inherited from family, but not a strong regional accent. Clear pronunciation and easy to understand. Kind, expressive and genuine. Sounds like someone who grew up around Surrey and Sussex, but spent most of her time listening to a mother from Gloucestershire. Not posh, not London. Reading that description back was quite emotional because I realised I wasn't really describing a voice anymore. I was describing myself. The warmth, the friendliness, and the way I wanted people to experience me mattered just as much as the accent. For the first time, I wasn't choosing between voices that someone else had made. I was creating something based on my own identity. The first time I generated a voice that was close to what I had imagined, I just sat there listening. It wasn't because I thought, yes, that's definitely what my vocal cords would have sounded like. Nobody can ever know that. It was because I finally heard a voice that matched the person I already felt I was inside. People sometimes ask me whether this is really my voice. I always say yes, not because it's biologically my voice, but because it represents me. The words are mine, the stories are mine, the jokes are mine, the excitement when I win a boccia match is mine, the frustration when technology doesn't work is mine. Even my love of eggs is mine. The AI simply gives all of those things a sound. When I think back to that little girl in 2010 speaking with an American robotic voice, the journey almost feels unbelievable. Back then, I was simply grateful that people could hear my thoughts. Now, in 2026, for the first time in my life, I feel like people are hearing Becky rather than hearing the technology. That is why 11 Labs has meant so much to me. It didn't give me back a voice that I had lost. It gave me the opportunity to discover a voice that I had been waiting my whole life to find. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I hope this video has shown you that AI voice technology is about so much more than just cloning voices. For people living with motor neurone disease, it can preserve a voice that means everything to them. For people like me, who have never been able to speak naturally, it can create something we've been waiting our whole lives to experience. For years, I accepted that I would always sound like a computer. First, I sounded like an American robot. Then I sounded like every other child using the same British voice. Later, I sounded Australian because it was the closest match I could find. Every step was an improvement, and I'm incredibly grateful for the people who developed those voices, because they gave me the ability to communicate, learn, make friends, and live independently. They change my life. But today, for the first time, I feel like people are hearing me. Not because AI has magically discovered the voice I would have been born with, but because it has given me a voice that reflects who I am. My personality, my humour, my kindness, my excitement, and my life are all real. The AI simply gives them a sound. I hope this video encourages more people to think about accessibility in a different way. It's not just about giving people a way to communicate, it's about giving people the chance to express who they are. Every person deserves to have a voice that feels like their own, whether they're preserving one they've always had or discovering one for the very first time. I'd love to know what you think. If you're an AAC user, has your voice changed over the years? Have you ever found a voice that truly felt like you? And if you've never used AAC before, did anything in this video surprise you? Let me know in the comments because I genuinely love to hear your thoughts and answer your questions. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing. I make videos about eye gaze technology, accessibility, gaming, disability, AAC, and the amazing technology that's helping people communicate in new ways. Your support really does help me continue making these videos and sharing my experiences. Thank you again for watching. Thank you to everyone who has supported me throughout my journey. And thank you to everyone working to make communication more accessible for people around the world. I'm Becky, also known as EyeGazeGirl, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.